One of the most interesting things to me is this, how people recall this telepathic experiences on DMT. And not only that, there's telepathic experiences like within near-death experiences. There's I don't know if you ever heard stories of people who like been in a car accident together, explaining they're in this, having this near-death dream, hallucinate, whatever you want to call it, with the other person that they were in that accident with. And in some cases, that person being carried off if they died, them being put back into their body. And then you have like Dennis, when he talks about what they, him and Terrence and La Chirera, I think Dennis ate mushrooms, like so many mushrooms that he was in this other universe for like 10 days.
Right.
And him and Terrence were communicating telepathically the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting. Well, shared or telepathic experiences. Like I ought to talk more about the book probably.
Yeah.
When the opportunity comes up, and this is a good example of the first time I smoked any cannabis product, which is one of the chapters in my book, My Altered States. Yeah, I had a telepathic experience with my roommate.
Oh, wow.
We were sitting on a Persian carpet on the floor, and the floor just gave out from under us. And we floated over town, and we were controlling the movement of the rug as well as comparing what we were seeing down below. Yeah. Oh, look at that. Oh, look. And we were seeing it together, and we were steering it higher and lower.
Wow.
And we both.
Are you sure this weed wasn't laced with anything?
Well, it was hash actually.
Oh, it was hash.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. It's a funny story. Like it's a Friday night in November, and there was a knock on the door, and the senior resident advisor came by, and he said, "I hear you haven't gotten stoned yet," which was true. And would you like to smoke some blonde Lebanese hash? So. Yeah, he came. He came in, and we we smoked, and some friends came in, and the flying carpet experience took place.
Oh wow, that's wild. Yeah, the telepathy thing. How do you explain that?
Well, I think it would be just sort of a step up from shared feelings or shared thoughts. Why not have shared perceptions too? I think if you're close enough, vibrationally, and if DMT, let's say, were involved, which would be mediating the visions, then you might be able to share an experience like that.
Have you ever heard anybody ever engaging in any kind of trip like how Dennis describes what they did in La Chirera, where he's basically gone for 10 days, and he explained that like he had to eat the mushrooms that was just like their calories for the day. And he couldn't even like shit on his own. He literally explained like how he had to take a shit. He had to like ask somebody to take a shit for him. And,
oh, really?
Like, he was just like completely out of his body for 10 days, communicating with Terrence.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know if there's ever been anything like that done before, and I'd be curious like how many of those experiences where people are sharing an experience like that and communicating telepathically, how many times has that been done or recorded?
Yeah, I've got a colleague at Bastyr University up in Seattle who's interested in actually doing brain scans on people in distant rooms, and seeing if they can be telepathic, and if so, would their brain function, their EEG be similar?
Yeah. That would be fascinating.
Yeah, that's a very cool study. I don't know if it's been finished or published or whatnot, but I think that's one of the ways that you could start to study telepathy.
I always wonder if like these experiences that we have are like something that we were more attuned to centuries ago, or even hundreds of thousands of years ago. If we had these abilities to communicate telepathically, or to you know, even be in more of an altered state or have just more of an experience of reality in real life, similar to how people experience, how do people describe their experiences like when they go to the Amazon for the first time, how they explain like all these dormant senses just wake up, being in the jungle, being disconnected from technology and all this and all these things, you know?
Yeah, and that's one of the ways in which they become more telepathic.
Right.
Yeah.
I wonder if like this telepathic, if just ancient humans were more, our bodies were more technologically advanced and we had ways to communicate without verbal, right? And just because because we had, our antennas were more in tune to something else.
Yeah.
That now our antennas are kind of just, they've gone dormant because of the evolution of technology and phones and the internet and all these things.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Julian Jaynes and the bicameral mind?
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of the bicameral mind.
Yeah. Yes. So, Jaynes taught that, there was the spoken voice, which occurred all of the time in everyone. And then at some point biologically that just, or at some point there were changes in brain structure and function that made the spoken voice go away. It's interesting within the tradition of Hebrew Bible prophecy. There's an end of prophecy that occurred at a certain point. That would not have taken place as far back as Jaynes is suggesting.
So she's saying the human mind operated in a non-conscious state until about 3,000 years ago, where individuals experienced auditory hallucinations as commands from God, guiding their actions. Whoa.
Yeah, so it places the self on the side of the body. And there was no self. There was no personal self. You were just kind of responding to this thing.
The right hemisphere of the brain interpreted sensory data, judged and decided and formed language, while the left hemisphere acted on these commands without being aware of the decision-making process.
Mm-hmm. No free will.
Wow.
Or was it was experienced anyway as no free will. And then the authority became introjected, for some reason, which may have come about because of volcanic activity, earthquakes, those kinds of things, some natural catastrophes.
3,000 years ago.
Yeah, the end of the prophetic stream was about 2,500 years ago or so.
The end of the prophetic stream.
Yeah.
So this is so you wrote the whole book on the Hebrew Bible and prophets. And